channel. So today's video is going to be a little bit different. I'm just going to talk to you guys a little bit about a few things that I think are very important to think about before you start applying to nursing school, or if you're even thinking of applying to nursing school. So the first thing that I think you have to do is check the requirements for the school that you're thinking of going to. Nothing sucks more than having a school in mind, doing all the prerequisites that you know you're supposed to be doing: anatomy with lab, physiology with lab, microbiology with lab, chemistry with lab, statistics, psychology, English, communication, all those, and then come to find out that you need pathophysiology, and then you're just like, wait, what? No other school needs pathophysiology. Why does this school need pathophysiology? Well, it's because every school has like their own prerequisites. So schools can have the same prerequisite, and then there'll be one or two schools that have like a random class that you have to take before you apply. So make sure that you know the prerequisites prior to you applying to that school. That way there are no surprises when you're ready to apply. Another thing is to make sure that you're checking the cost of the program. So I think it's so important to make sure that you're going to a program that's affordable, that won't break the bank, and that won't make you have debt when you graduate. I know that some people are eventually going to have some debt, and that's completely fine, but don't go into a program that requires you to pay $80,000 when there's another program that's just as good and it's only $40,000. And so just make sure that you keep that in mind. If you know your parents are going to help you out, if you know your parents are completely fine with spending that kind of money on your education, then that's completely fine. It's, that you know what your limit is in regards to tuition, so don't even worry about it. I'm just saying, for those of you who are going to be paying for your own tuition or you're using financial aid, then yeah, cost of program is definitely a huge factor to take into consideration. Another thing to consider is make sure that you know what program you want to apply to. So for a lot of people, they're just trying to get into the traditional Bachelor's of Science in Nursing, maybe 3 to 4 years. Other people might already have their degree in something else and are trying to just get their Bachelor's in Nursing. So then in that case, you would get an accelerated Bachelor's of Science in Nursing. For people who have a degree in something else and want to go for their master's, then you would go for your direct entry Master's of Science in Nursing program. It's different than a traditional Master's of Science in Nursing program. A traditional program is when you already have your Bachelor's of Science and now you're going for your Master's of Science. A direct entry is when you have your bachelor's in something not related to nursing, and now you want to get your master's in nursing. So that's the direct entry. And then there's also Doctor of Nursing Practice, PhD, all that stuff. So make sure that you're familiar with the type of program that you want to go into. You look at the length of time the program is for. Some programs, which are the Accelerated Bachelor of Science in Nursing, are 15 months. Others for the same program are 3 years. So of course you want to look into the length of the program. That is definitely a huge thing to consider. Some schools, their direct entry Masters of Science in Nursing are 2 years. Some of them are 3 years. So I think it's very important to look into the length of the program. So knowing what you're getting yourself into is huge. Obviously, you don't want to go in blindsided. Another huge thing is to make sure that you keep your grades up. Some schools want you to have over a 3.0 just to apply. Other schools want you to have more than 3.2 to be considered competitive. For me personally, since I'm doing a direct entry Master's of Science in Nursing, my GPA had to be higher than a 3.2 in order for me to get the GRE waived. And schools look into your scores for that test. But if you have a competitive GPA, then you don't have to have that test. And so that's another thing that, you don't have to worry about, because you did so well on your prerequisites or your GPA is competitive. Some schools will allow you to have C's on your prerequisites. Other schools will not. Other schools will only want you to have A's or B's. And so that's when you have to make sure that you're already thinking about the types of schools that you want to apply to. That way you know what you're supposed to be getting for your grades. You know what GPA is considered competitive for that school. If you get a C and the school that you wanted to go to doesn't take C's, then you might have to retake that class, or you might have to reconsider the school. If you don't want to take the class again, then that school might not be for you, and then you can just look at other schools that will be for you. So it's personal preference, of course. It depends if you're willing to sacrifice another semester to retake that class just because you want to go to that school, and that's what works for you, and that's completely fine. That's your track. You know what's best for you. That's completely fine. If you aren't really attached to the school and you have one C, then you're like, okay, I'll just keep looking for a school that does work for me. So it depends on what your personal preference is. If you're taking your time with your prerequisites and you're willing to retake a class, that's completely fine as well. No one's rushing you. This is not a race. So these are just a few things that I think you should keep in mind when applying for school or when thinking of applying for nursing school. It's so important to take all these things into consideration. Make sure that you research the school prior to applying. I think I researched for about 3 to 4 months before I applied for schools. Just because I was looking at the cost, I was looking at the requirements and what I already qualified for, what I didn't qualify for, the length of program, because I'm not about to apply to a program that's 4 years when I can apply to this one that's 2 years. And then where it's located. If you're willing to go out of state, then that's perfect. If it's cheaper that way for you, that's perfect. People think that if you go out of state, it's going to be significantly more expensive, but that's not necessarily true. For grad programs, in-state and out-of-state tuition might be the exact same thing. It might not be more expensive after all. Of course, you do have to take into consideration like moving expenses, housing, where you're going to be living, things like that. But still, some programs here in California are just so expensive that it still might be worth going out of state. So again, it's just another thing to consider when looking into programs. I think it's so important to do your research when it comes to schools. There are great schools out there, but the cost might not be what your budget is around, or the budget might be there but the school is not there. So you just have to take all these things into consideration when you're applying to school. So yeah, I hope this video was helpful for any of you guys. Please let me know in the comments down below what you guys think. I would love to engage with you guys, so like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!